and welcome to Theater Charlotte's TC Teachables. Today we are starting off our Cat on a Hot Tin Roof virtual takeover week. And to start, we have our costumer from Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and a bazillion other Theater Charlotte shows with us, Chelsea Retalic. Hey, Chelsea!
Hi.
So she is going to share with you all about the costume design process, and then if you have any questions, be sure to post those on Facebook and we'll answer them, or I won't. I don't know anything about costuming, but Chelsea will answer them at the end. So take it away, Chelsea.
Great. Hi guys, thanks for joining us this afternoon. So we did get really far in our process of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. The only thing we didn't get to do was perform it. So I do have a lot of kind of things to show you guys as far as that show is concerned, and then I can also take you through the process of what I do to get ready for a show in general. So I think the first time I worked for Theater Charlotte was Importance of Being Earnest, and I believe it was 2015. Since then, I've pretty much steadily been doing 2 shows per year with them. So I have quite a few things that I have done with them, and they're always a pleasure to work with. So as far as Cat on a Hot Tin Roof goes, we do a couple of production meetings. I get the script, I read it once or twice. I highlight anything that may be of importance for costume. So if there's a mention of someone, putting on shoes or taking off a jacket or handing someone a hat, things that are normally in the stage direction, it's really helpful for me to know these things. So if the director is planning on adding it in, I can make sure they have it in rehearsal or vice versa, and making sure all those costume pieces are part of that. So Theater Charlotte, I'm really lucky that they do have a costume stock. It is off-site. And they do have a variety of things in there. I tend to go through that first to kind of see if anything matches the time period. And I really just kind of pull from there first because it is free. I also work for quite a number of theaters in the area as well, such as Children's Theater of Charlotte. And they're very lenient with me about borrowing things from their stock as well. So I do kind of have 2 places that I can pull from. I have a number of friends who costume design in the area, and sometimes if I'm looking for something really specific, I can look through their storage units as well. So it's really kind of collaborative and really supportive. So I would read the script. I would take down anything of significance for costumes, and then I tend to make a binder. This is not my Cat on a Hot Tin Roof one because I had a couple shows going on at once, and I did a binder instead of a sketchbook. But I take my measurement sheets, and I take measurements of everyone in the cast, anything that would be of relevance. So these are kind of our costume. My measurement sheet that I go off of. So it includes some weird measurements such as arm's eye, which is the circle in which your arm goes through for a sleeve. Yeah, so all sorts of different things that I need in order to make sure that a garment fits someone. So once I've pulled everything that I can from stocks, existing clothing that are free or able to be borrowed, I tend to go to thrift stores in the area. I could tell you just about every Goodwill in the Charlotte area or Value Village because I have been there, or Salvation Army. And then unfortunately this one is like, it's nice to get cheap things, which help, and things that you can, a lot of times menswear is really nice to get there because it's general enough throughout the decades that you can kind of get away with it. Women's wear, not so much, it really depends. But unfortunately, it's the cheapest option, but also kind of the most expensive option because I can't return things normally. So sometimes they do store credit depending on how quickly you can get it back to them. But if I'm, shopping and I don't have a fitting for another 2 weeks, I may have missed that window. So yes, a pair of pants is $3, but it's that $3 I can't get back if those pants don't work. So you kind of have to really take your measure tape with you and really pay attention to all your measurements because it's once you buy it, you kind of are stuck with it. After that, I can go online, which has been such a great help. Amazon has just about everything. There are a lot of great vintage sites online if you need something super specific. Sometimes you can find things, you can find reproductions. And then the last thing, if it's something that I absolutely cannot find anywhere else, I will build it. So, and what I mean by build it is I make it from scratch, or maybe I modify something that already exists. So that's an example for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I found a dress that I liked but I didn't want the actress to have sleeves. So this is a sketch that I have done. I do most of my sketching digitally, one, because it's not my strong suit, and there are a lot of ways you can kind of cheat online, which is great. So here's my rendering for Maggie. So down here, this photo over here is from, I believe, ModCloth or a vintage site, and I loved it, but I didn't love the sleeves, so I basically just drew the dress, but without sleeves, and when it arrived in the mail, all I did was remove the sleeves and have her try it on. I think we also altered the back of the dress because she could not reach the zipper, and she had to dress herself on stage, so that's something that kind of a hiccup you run into during fittings, and maybe they've tried it on stage while they're rehearsing, because it really is part of their movement. So they need to be able to function as well as be part of the design. So that is one of the main challenges that I have when I am designing, is we want to meet the director's vision, but that also needs to be practical. So here's another sketch of Big Mama's character. So I found this gray lace dress online that I really love. So since I found it online already, I went ahead and sketched it so that our director could get a better view of that. And this is a character that we actually wanted to add body padding to. So that's something I made. I actually have it over here. Now, unfortunately, I made this and she never did get to try it on, but it does look a little silly without the clothing. So what I did is I took a women's shapewear garment from like Walmart or Target, and then I added these kind of pillows to it, kind of body padding. So this is the front. So we added a little volume here. We added a little bit of tummy. We added some thigh. We added some butt. So she would have worn this under her dress, and then it would have given her the shape, hopefully. And maybe we could have made some modifications to this. But I bought the dress in a larger size because we do want to make her larger. So these are all things you have to think about depending on what the script denotes. Just go. Laptop battery's running low. Okay, so, and then the last sketch that I did for Kat was this one for our male actor. I can't think of his name. Brick. He was mostly in silk pajamas the whole time. So there's kind of my sketch of him. Great. Okay, so yeah, so as I'm buying pieces, as I'm building pieces, I'm adding to kind of each individual's character plot. So each character has a costume plot. If they have any changes within the show, it will list when they need to make that change, what clothing they're changing into, maybe if someone needs to help them. Sometimes we get lucky and we have people backstage to help us do wardrobe changes. We were really lucky for that for Terms of Endearment, because the mother character changed many, many times, and often only with maybe a scene or half a scene time to change. So we were really lucky that we had someone backstage, because although I am the costume designer, I do have other shows and I do have obligations, and I can't always be backstage for every single performance to help. So we try and do something called quick rigging. So quick rigging is when you have maybe a shirt that buttons, or maybe you've got some buttons at the sleeve for a men's shirt, or maybe you've got something just that really needs to come off or on really quickly. So two main things we like to use for quick rigging are Velcro and snaps. And also zippers. It really depends, because sometimes you'll have maybe a garment that looks really detailed on the front, but down the back is just a seam with a zipper in it, because that person needs to get out of a full costume very fast. So it's just one zipper, one application. Other times, if you need to quick rig out of maybe a button-down shirt and they need to rip out of it really quick, you'll put snaps instead of buttons, but you will place the buttons on the front so it still looks like the shirt is buttoned up correctly. Or if they need to get the shirt on quickly, sometimes you'll choose Velcro over snaps, because you can Velcro something quicker than you would individual snaps down the front. So those are some things that we use. That kind of borderlines into wardrobe. Wardrobe is kind of like a completely different job than costume design. So costume design takes the nuances of the script, the director's vision, and the actors themselves, and how you want to portray their character. in this world. And you design all those things, you bring all these elements in. But wardrobe is once the show is running. They normally take care of maintenance of laundry. They take care of the maintenance of the costumes in general. So if something's falling apart, they tend to fix it. And they're also backstage as a support system for the actors. So if they need to change quickly, whether that be makeup, whether that be hair, some wig changes can occur backstage, or just full costumes. There's someone to lend a hand to all of those moments, which is really helpful. So we kind of create this world as costume designers, and then once the show has opened and gone through tech, we kind of hand it over to our wardrobe people, and they continue the story while we are gone until we close up for strike. So I think that is kind of all the explanation I have for most of my process for costume design. So like I said, with the sketching, I only have 3, and I tend to do it online, and I really only sketch nowadays if a director is really adamant about seeing the whole picture. A lot of times I can create a Pinterest board to create kind of the image and the just kind of the thoughts, put all my thoughts into one area so that they can see and make comments on and maybe add their own pictures if we do a collaborative page, which is really nice. But unfortunately, sometimes I have a very small window to get a show done, and also sometimes I am working on multiple shows at once. So Pinterest is an easy way to, catalog all my thoughts while not taking me hours to sketch something when I could be out shopping, when I could be out making a garment that we've already agreed upon with a director and collaborated on. So that is something that Jackie, do you maybe want to show the Pinterest page? I'm not sure how to switch between tabs here.
Hey, yeah, we can totally do that.
Should I stop my current screen?
Yeah,
And try and do
stop your sharing and then share another one.
Okay. Here we go. Okay, so keeping in theme with Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, here is my Pinterest page for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. So I've got some silhouettes that I really like. We've got some information for the women. They had obviously lots of questions on how to do their hair if they weren't wearing a wig. So I've got some fun examples here of just ones that really caught my eye while I was searching through Pinterest. This is my inspiration for Maggie. So I really liked how her hair was more down and not as, not as restrained as Big Mama and her sister-in-law, because they just kind of seemed a little more uppity and in your face. So they needed a little more extreme hairstyle. Here's some stuff for the men, kind of some casual stuff. It is summer. This play does take place in the summer, which is something you need to think about. You need to think about what they would wear, not only the time period, but the time of year, and also their class status. So this family had a lot of money. They had old money, but they were in a very hot climate in Mississippi. So they needed to be able to reflect that. We've got some coverall here for our handymen that were in the show. These are some of the photos. I wanted to see kind of the silhouette of the robes, because Brick is in a robe a couple of times. Just more dress inspiration, mostly for Maggie, just trying to pinpoint. I knew I wanted her in white. The character who is the sister-in-law, I can't think of her name at the moment, but she was pregnant, and Dennis wanted her about 6 months pregnant. So this is kind of my research about maternity wear at the time. I love that these skirts had kind of this opening for the belly, which was pretty interesting to find, because you don't think about that, right? They still wanted to wear this silhouette because it was the fashion, but they had to accommodate for, their shape as they go along their pregnancy. So eventually I didn't settle on these kind of little tunics. I didn't really love the way that they looked or could potentially look on stage. So I kind of went with this silhouette here. And I ended up building this dress for our actress. And I made it out of like a floral print color. Yeah, so I just liked that this showed that she was pregnant, but was still kind of really stylish and sleek, and looked really good with our faux belly, because we had to make, her look pregnant. So we've got some slip kind of photos here. This is a production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof that was done. I'm not entirely sure which. Yeah, it says Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, the London cast. So they did a revival overseas. So I really wanted to look and see how they kind of did theirs. This is from the movie here. We've got a little boy in a costume. This is, I want to say, maybe an off-Broadway production. Some more from the movie. So I kind of, if it's already been created elsewhere, I kind of like to just look at the feel that they've created. I try not to copy it too much, but yeah, here's some iconic photos from the movie. Yeah, so I kind of compile all of this together. Here's kind of my inspiration for Mama. I was fortunate to find something similar online on a reproduction site that I was able to buy for her. But I wanted her a little more modest. You know, she is portrayed as a larger actress. At least in the script, she wasn't cast that way, but we were going to add some body padding for that. This is another photo I loved of the matching mama and daughter kind of outfits there. And I think one of the girls, I did have a dress that was very similar to the mom's maternity outfit. So that was kind of fun to play into that. So yeah, so there's my cat on a hot tin roof. Let's see. I'll go back one more. Okay, so this is kind of my Pinterest page. Like if I've done all sorts, and I named them kind of funny things. So this is And Then There Were None, and I called it 10 Tin Soldiers. So these are kind of all my inspirational photos through there, things I wanted to replicate or just to remind myself what world I'm in. So these are really just world building for me, and also a chance for the director to get a sense of what I would like to see on stage. Yeah, so there's all of that. I happen to do a lot of 30s, late 20s, early 30s, late 30s shows in a row. For some reason, a lot of the theaters in the areas really went that direction with a lot of the shows at once. So it felt like I was constantly doing 30 shows. So by the end, I felt like I really had a grasp on what I needed to see. Okay, see, maybe look at one more. There's a fantastical kind of, I don't have any photos from this production currently, but this is my research on a more fantastical show called Once Upon a Mattress, and I did this at the J Stage with the Jewish Community Center. So just some kind of inspiration as far as what I wanted my characters to look like. I did end up building quite a bit for this show. These are some original renderings from Broadway, I believe, or an off-Broadway production or a revival. So that was kind of fun. I took some colors from that because I really enjoyed the way that they put them together. Yeah, so Pinterest boards are definitely a really great asset to share your ideas through pictures to the directors and even to the actors too. A lot of times they have questions about, you know, what's my costume going to look like? What should my hair look like? What should my makeup look like? And these are a really great resource to pull up just about anything. If it exists on the internet, you can pretty much find it on Pinterest and you can help relay it to your creative team. Okay, so I think if we want to back out of that, can I just close the... I think maybe, yeah, okay. Great, so I'm just gonna close Pinterest. Okay, let's see what else I'm gonna talk about. I think I've already kind of covered my my sketchbooks that I do. So I tend to grab just this basic $5 sketchbook and I, label it. So this is from Grapes of Wrath. That was 2017 at Theater Charlotte. So that was a rather large cast. So what I like to do is I like to take and tab everyone so I can find them at a glance. So I like to be able to either put their character name, because sometimes I learn character names faster than the actor names, and it's easier to keep one set in your brain rather than two sets of names in your brain, especially because they're referred to so often in the script as their character name, so it's easier for me. So what I tend to do is I will take each person's measurement sheet, like I showed you earlier, and I will put it across from a blank sheet and then maybe a few sheets after that, so I can make notes during fittings about what they may need, or I can make individual notes about costumes in general. But I love having something physical that I can write everything down on. A lot of times I'll save pages in the back to really make just kind of lists for myself. And then also at the front of this one, because there were so many characters and because they played multiple different characters, I also did a costume plot kind of scene breakdown for them, and that's something I just taped in here. So this is Act 1 alone for all these characters, and I have, you know, actors' names or characters' names on the sides, and then as you follow along the side, you can see like Act 1, Scene 2, Scene 3. I can use an X to donate that they're in the scene. I think that's what I did here. Yeah, it just lets me know if they're in the scene and if they've changed character, if they're maybe just an unnamed male or female that has multiple characters. I can list who they are in what scene, and that will help us come up with a plan for them to change backstage. And then here's also my Act 2 list. So being organized is super important, especially with a really large cast, because a lot of times they haven't seen you in a week and you come in to do fittings and then they all bombard you at once, and I have lots of questions. So the more prepared you are, the easier it goes. I also like to do, just more of a break. So this is the initial kind of breakdown, and then I put it into a kind of spreadsheet. I like to put the all the dates on so I know what my deadlines are. Super duper important. And then we normally have a like a communications list of everyone's phone numbers, emails, blah, blah, blah. And that I normally pop in here too. Another thing that's really important, especially since Theater Charlotte gives me, you know, a budget, normally it's around $1,000 to spend for the show. So another thing you really have to keep track of is your receipts, your spending. So I tend to print all of those out and make like a little folder in the back, and I keep those all in one spot so that I can turn those in at the end. It can be really easy to just start spending money and realize you've gotten, you know, only 5 of the 11 costumes completely done, and then you've kind of got to scramble. So fortunately, I'm pretty organized in that sense, and I'm really fortunate to have other theaters that I can borrow from so that I can make that money stretch as long as possible. And if there's something that the director absolutely must have that may be on the expensive side or something I have to build, that we can have enough money to get that accomplished. So I think that's a lot of the process of what I do. As far as where I do it, this is a room in my house, kind of my sewing room. It has a giant table. That's the laptop is sitting on right now. It is 8 by 4 feet, and it has all these drawers underneath on both sides. There are 12 sets of drawers on this side and 12 sets of drawers on that side from IKEA, and they hold all of my fabric, all of my notions, all of my, you know, things with buttons. I've got, you know, bias tape. I've got literally anything, you know, rulers. Everything's just kind of at my disposal here. And it was really important to me when I bought this house 2 years ago that I needed a room just to do my work so that it didn't crowd the rest of my house and the rest of my life. Unfortunately, my car is not always so lucky. It's normally filled with costumes while I'm working 24, like it's always filled with costumes. Unfortunately, it's a large enough car that it can handle it. I think I've packed 3 shows at once in there, and they were rather large shows, and it was bursting at the gills, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. As far as building a costume goes, I tend to just use a store-bought pattern if it's possible. So, let's see. So like this is a pattern I used for Once Upon a Mattress. A lot of times you can look in the costume section if it's something that's a little more fantasy, or you can find actual vintage patterns sometimes. This one I think is from the 80s. You can find them kind of cheap either online or like at estate sales or, you know, thrift sales. Fortunately, they've gotten a lot better as far as a variety of patterns. So that's nice. So, and what's great about clothing is that a lot of times things cycle back in fashion. So like this was probably a pattern that I just bought from Joann's that was pretty, you know, pretty standard. But even this one up here could very easily be just a 50s house dress, depending on what fabric you put it in. So this is a modern pattern, but fortunately it is something that I can make look more period if I need to. So that is great. So once you learn about your different time periods in your decades, it's really easy to see other decades, maybe try and copy them, or certain styles come back around. So that is always helpful. A lot of times you can kind of zhuzh up some 70s clothes that were trying to look 30s. So sometimes you can do things that way. There's really a lot of options, especially when you decide to build your own clothing for the theater. So you can also kind of Mod Podge things together. Like I've used this pattern before, just the top, and I've turned it into a dress because I like the style lines of it. So everything is modifiable. You essentially just kind of piece things together, kind of puzzle piece things together. I like to think of sewing as a puzzle. It's just different shapes that you're trying to form into something different. So I think about it that way. I've got this thing that I'm making for a friend. It's like a little cowgirl dress. That's something I just drafted on the mannequin itself. So you can either use something like a flat pattern to create a garment, or you can use the dress form and you can form the fabric to it and decide where those lines are going to end up, and you can create a pattern that way as well. So that's something I'm a little more comfortable with. Flat patterning is still so much math. I think I have a textbook about it. Like this is the textbook that you get when you learn to make flat pattern. It's very thick, it's very dense, it's very difficult, but it includes so much stuff about how to make just about anything. So that's been a really fun thing to have. I got this recently, so it's been really great to learn more. Got a lot of books about the subject. I like to collect, I only have 2, but I want more, collect books about costumes from different shows. So I have Natasha Pear and the Great Comet of 1812, as well as the Hamilton book that really show really great in-depth photos of the costumes and just the design process to get them there as well. So what you see on stage, maybe the 5th or 7th iteration of what the designer has come up with, or even made. They may have made something in pre-production that just wasn't quite right, so they've tweaked it and they do something for the final product for the actual show. Okay, I think let's try.
Hey.
Yes, hi.
Chris has a question for you.
Of course.
If you want. So I just figured it worked with what you were talking about. He wanted to know, when you were talking about creating pieces or transforming them, which do you feel like is more rewarding?
Sometimes when you find something that is almost what you want at a thrift store and you're able to do something to it quickly and efficiently and on budget, sometimes that feels really rewarding because you're like, yes, I did it. But it's also really fun to make things from scratch. Sometimes it can be hard because if you're using a standard pattern, nobody's body is standard, right? Nobody's, right? So even if they are the exact, inches on the pattern, it will not fit them right. So sometimes it's a little bit more of a battle to take something that didn't exist before and try and really mold it to someone than, say an existing dress that you just need to take the sleeves off. You need to take it in at the waist. You need to add this, and this, and then it's done. So it's a mix of both. Sometimes it's really nice to find something already existing that you can just throw your magic at and it just be done. But there is something to be said about building something from scratch and really seeing your vision kind of come to life, which is a nice tie-in to, let me see if I can share the screen for my costume design. There we go. So this, I'm going to show 2 examples here. So this is one of the first shows I ever did while I was still in college. I went to Illinois. There's a place called Festival 56, and this was either the last or the second to last show in our season. I think our last one was Into the Woods. And this is Boeing. So we had the 3 flight attendants, we had the housekeeper, the boyfriend, and then the friend's boyfriend. So we had a small cast, but that really helped me really dive into these costumes. So these are costumes that I designed myself after tons and tons of research about flight attendants of every type from every country. It was really cool to learn all about that. And then I made these from scratch, all 3 of these. All the details are really important to me. It's really hard. Oh, there we go. Okay, so they all have different embroidery on their uniforms, and that is something I did by hand. It was really important to me to kind of get that authenticity in there, and then I've kind of got them all kind of color coordinated with the hats and the gloves and the shoes. I actually painted the bags I found on thrift and painted to match. So that was really super duper rewarding to be a young designer. I think I had just turned 21. I had my birthday up there, and to make these costumes kind of come alive. And I remember the director being really happy with them. The actresses absolutely loved them. They wanted to, buy them afterwards. They really enjoyed. They really wanted to keep their bags. Oh, you're not gonna zoom in? No. Yeah, so they all had kind of matching coordinating outfits. Yeah, so that one was really rewarding. Here's the whole cast. We kind of really just played on the color schemes and kind of the tropes. So there's our French kind of savvy man who has all three of the girlfriends, and then our American who, is portrayed as a little more dowdy but still hilarious. So I kind of let the actor all that. Okay, let's see. Another one. So this, we're gonna go down here. Let's see. So The Importance of Being Earnest was the first show I did professionally in Charlotte with Theater Charlotte. So this one was a lot of fun. One, because I know the show. We did it in college. I was not a part of it, but I found it extremely hilarious and also really beautiful to look at aesthetically. So for this show, I built this costume for the teacher, Miss Prism, I believe. I built a couple outfits for Joe Blady. I built 2 here for Gretchen, and then I built 1 here for Emily because she did not have any costume changes. I modified some modern suits for the gentleman here, so I really just tucked these edges of the suit here. I made the priest outfit here on Hank, and then we've also got like a generic butler that I believe I pulled from Theater Charlotte because they have a really great stock in general. Let's see. So yeah, so here's one of Miss Prism's. And the fun thing was with these costumes, I had a very small amount of fabric already kind of in my personal stock. But what was really cool is I went to a couple different thrift stores and I found curtains and I found sheets and I found tablecloths, and I was able to make this show all the women's costumes for I believe about $500. And that was, I pulled most of the men's stuff. I did make vests for them. They were actually reversible. I don't know what made me do that, but those, I don't know. I was trying to make it a little easier on them. So here's a nice picture of Gretchen in this blue outfit. So I did a lot of research, and a lot of these costumes for them are kind of mishmash pieces of things I already found existing online that I really liked. The color of this on something, but I also really love the lapels here. Really love kind of adding this detail. So that's just done with bias tape. Got kind of the faux buttons. I don't believe they actually worked. This always kind of bugs me, but I'm a little bit of a perfectionist here. Let's see. I loved this one of Emily. This just lovely light yellow and purple. I believe this was probably the last one that I made. I had made the rest of them. And then this one, I was really happy with the way it turned out. It looked really nice on her. And this is actually a wig for Gretchen that I styled. I do know a decent amount, enough to get by for wigs. I use them sparingly if I can. I know some directors are really picky about the way they look on the actors. And there's also a concern if there's no one dedicated to wardrobe and hair that they can keep them looking nice throughout maybe a 3-week run. It can be difficult to keep those nice and tidy and looking the way they did day 1. Yeah, here's some pictures of let's see, Hank. Yeah, so I definitely built all of these for the women. Oh, where's that blue one? There it is. Yep, so this blue ensemble, I actually have a couple pictures of these on my dress form. I was living in an apartment at that time and had maybe a quarter of the space I do now, and I was able to get all of these done. Yeah, so I loved all the kind of details on hers. So she's got this lovely gold trim that I already had, nice poof sleeve, and then just a really, really nice jacket, skirt combo. Yeah, lots of little pleats, lots of little details. yeah, I was just kind of working with what I had. Most of this dress is, I believe, a top sheet from Goodwill. It was very soft. Maybe not the best fabric to work with. I could have used a little more stiffness in that, but hey, it was my first show. So let's see. Yes, the Miss Prism. I really love the way that skirt turned out and that shirt. And then here's another look for Jill. I believe she only had two, green and the red. Yeah, so this was all velvet and it was green. It kind of shows a black, but I really love the tiered look of this lapel here, which is really fun. And she was really great to work with. Oh, for this show, I almost forgot. I made 4 corsets from scratch for this show. Because Theater Charlotte did not have any in stock, and I could not find any that were within budget and that would fit our range of actresses. So I made 4 corsets, one for Emily, one for Gretchen, one for Miss Prism, and one for Jill. So that was also a process because I had made a corset before in college, but had not made that many, and luckily I got it all done. Here's a couple other shows of things that I have built. This is The Little Mermaid. If you've seen other shows at the J and also at Theater Charlotte, you're probably familiar with Aurelia. She is very talented, and I have had the fortune of working with her multiple times, and she is always a delight. So here she is as Ariel. I made all of the tail skirts as well as the bodices for this show, for the mermaid, for her, and as well as the sisters. We bought these skirts from Amazon, kind of color coordinating, which was really fun. Let's see. I made Scuttle, this jacket. It was just the fabric came that way. It was really helpful to make it look like feathers. Made some pants and a hat for Flounder over here. King Triton. Made him a nice little silver tail and some pants, some flowy pants, and then the shirt. And then my boyfriend, Paul Swanson, works for Davidson Community Players, and he is very good with foam work, and he made this crown and these kind of shoulder braces for me as well. So tag team. And then this one's probably my favorite one. I really love how, find a good picture of him. I really love the way that Sebastian turned out. I made everything that he's wearing right now except for his red shirt. So I made a vest, I made a jacket, and I made pants for him, as well as we made this hat and claws for him too. And then you've got Ursula. I hand sewed every single one of these pieces of fabric onto her skirt by hand because I could not get it out of the machine. It was too huge. Let's see, we also made her kind of bustier here and a bodysuit for her so that she was a wonderfully purple sea witch. Let's see. Oh, here's some more. I think I showed the photos for I showed the photos for And Then There Were None. This is another 30s show, Philadelphia Story, which we did pretty recently. This was a dress I got online. So this one I was fortunate to find some evening wear things that really worked well. This is a dress that I've wanted to use for a long time that was in Theater Charlotte stock. And she is wearing a wig here. Fortunately, in the photos, it isn't too obvious. A lot of the menswear was pulled, so whether it was from Theater Charlotte or Children's Theater Charlotte, and some of it bought because, you know, you can only have so many things in sizes, in the right sizes for everyone, so you're kind of limited there. It's a dress probably that I got from Goodwill, suit jacket that I pulled, as well as pants and a vest that I think I bought. Yeah, so all sorts of things, just terms of endearment. I don't have too many shots from this one, but I will tell you that this actress right here changed, I believe, I probably have it written down, Aurora. She probably changes about 12 times in this show. Yeah, she had a lot of changes. And a lot of them were assisted. Fortunately, we had someone backstage that was a great help. Let's see. You Can't Take It With You was actually a show that Dennis was in, our director. Here he is. I think he's Grandpa in this one. Same thing as all my other shows. A lot of these were pulled from either Theater Charlotte or Children's Theater or bought. I made a couple of Jill's things. I believe I made all of Della's things. I think she had 3 dresses I made. Except for this one, I used to work for tutu.com, which is a ballet costume company. in Charlotte that is a small business that is locally owned, and they were very kind to let me borrow this tutu that they just kind of have in their rental storage. So that was super helpful. Didn't have to build a tutu, although that's what I did for them. I built tutus all day. Let's see, this is a nice picture of Corliss. I made this dress as well for her. This dress for Jill, I believe we pulled. There's Johnny. Yeah, so a lot of familiar faces in a lot of the shows I've done. It's been really great to work with people time and time again. You kind of get to know what will fit them. You kind of get to know their sizes and kind of what they work best in, especially if it's a show that has a lot of movement. A lot of times, if we're in a pinch, let's say we're in Tech Week and something's just not working, or maybe I haven't found anything locally, there are times when I will put things in it that are from my own closet, like this black dress here that is from my own closet because I didn't have anything else to put this actress in. She was very tiny and it fit her just fine. There's also a photo of some pants that I made for her because she was a little more of a casual dresser for this. Let's see, we've got some wigs in play here. I believe she's wearing wigs. She's wearing wigs. That's her own hair. Let's see what else.
Hey, Chelsea,
Yes.
we have another question.
Oh, yes.
Well, I'm going to take your screen away. Is that okay?
Okay, yes. Do you recommend a certain sewing machine? Also, any recommendations for young people that want to get into costume design? That is a great question. So when I was first starting out, I guess we'll start in college. I used to work at, I went to Catawba College in Salisbury, North Carolina, and they have a nice small little downtown. I was fortunate that there was a dress store called Maya's Fashions, and she sold prom dresses, Mother of the Bride. She also did alterations. So I worked for her for 3 years, sophomore to senior year, and doing alterations. So I worked for her most weekends and maybe once or twice a week. And the machine that she always bought was just the basic $80 Brother sewing machine. And she did this because, one, it was cheap, and two, they would last maybe about 1.5 years, and it wasn't the worst thing to just get a new one. So she kind of wore it to the bone. We wore it to the bone, and then we would kind of get a new one. But honestly, they're pretty good workhorses. I have one as my travel machine. Yeah, so that one is actually a pretty good workhorse. It's lightweight. It does a pretty good job if you are on a budget. I was really fortunate. I don't know if you can see it back here. I have a Bernina sewing machine, and that's a really common, really heavy-duty machine that people can buy. Brand new, they cost upwards of $1,500. I was really, really lucky and scanned eBay for a long time before I found this for $500. So that was a couple years ago, my birthday present to myself. I invested in a machine. They have a couple different styles. It's a 1008, but it's all metal, and it's really a great machine. I've only had to get it majorly repaired once.
Wow.
So, and I've had it for, I think, about 4 years now. But I love it. And then also a really great machine that you don't have to have, but if you are creating garments as much as I am, it's called a serger, and it has 2 needles that come down. And then what it does is it essentially creates, an example. It creates like this long chain stitch. Not be able to find an example fast enough here, but it creates a long chain stitch. If you were to like flip up like a shirt or something, and you've got kind of that chain stitch going on, that's what a serger does. It creates a finished edge for it, and is really, really helpful when you're trying to make a lot of things and you don't want them to fall apart or fray on the inside. So, and then the second half of that question was how to get into costume design. I learned to sew when I was little. I kind of taught myself around when I was in middle school was when Project Runway had just premiered. So that was a big factor on me figuring out that, oh, you can make your own clothes. Gotcha. So I could figure out how to sew. My mom taught me a few things. Grandma taught me a few things when I stayed with her for the summer in New Hampshire. And then when I got to college, I knew I wanted to do theater, but I didn't know where to go from there. So when I got there, I knew how to sew, and they were like, well, you can work study in the costume shop in the theater. So as soon as I started doing that, I realized that that was the part of theater that I enjoyed the most. So I kind of went from there, and they had a great couple great opportunities to design for student-directed shows. Kind of collaborate with our costume designer in residence there and our costume design teacher. And yeah, just kind of went from there. I knew from friends who had graduated after the fact that if you were in tech, you kind of had a better chance of getting consistent work.
Yeah.
I know it sounds really bad, but I mean, in college, I was only cast in like 3 shows. So I was like, well, this isn't working out. So let me try something I know I'm good at. So I kind of not that I fell into it, but I definitely found it through college. And if someone is interested in maybe in middle school or high school, it's best to maybe find someone who works for a community theater or and that is a designer that maybe they can shadow. You know, I'm always down to have someone not follow me around, but someone to be there and say, hey, will you please take notes for me? Hey, will you open these safety pins for me while I talk at you and explain what I'm doing and show you the ins and outs of what I do? Do you want to come to Goodwill with me? We can, you know, divide and conquer. This is what I'm looking for. So I'm all about teaching people who want to do more in the community. Charlotte in general is a pretty small theater community, I would say. There are quite a few big hitters that are in the area that people work for, but then there's also a lot of schools that want to hire people. So if you're a school that maybe hasn't hired a costume designer before and you know that you are interested in it and your school is doing a show, maybe see if they want any help or see if you can, you know, volunteer in that way and see if it's something that you enjoy that doesn't drive you crazy.
Yeah.
Because it can definitely drive you crazy at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always down to have someone shadow, and
Yeah.
that's where I got my start. And I'm really fortunate to have friends who are also in this industry that if it's a job that they can't do, that someone has approached them to, they reach out to me and I do the same for them.
Right.
I'm pretty supportive in that sense.
Cool. I know you mentioned like dressers backstage, having people help out during the actual show. So that's
always a great foot in the door too.
Everybody's looking for, and it sometimes involves a little bit of sewing if, you know, we lose a button. It's nice if somebody at the theater can fix it instead of making you come.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I do come back to the theater if there are major notes. A lot of times I can do laundry for a show if it's really necessary. I try to provide them or have them provide undergarments so that their skin isn't directly touching the costume the whole time, especially if it's like a really heavy musical number, or just a long show in general and they're a sweater, because sometimes that happens. Let's see what else.
Cool. We got one more question.
Sure.
Favorite costume you've built or found?
Found, I don't know, it's like found in a store or like found in a costume storage that you're like, oh my God, this is perfect. Because I've had those moments too, where I'm searching, and then I find, sometimes the best finds are things that you haven't thought about yet. Like a lot of times I kind of forget about the menswear sometimes, because sometimes the women's wear is a lot more fun. So I'll forget about the menswear. And then I find, you know, the perfect jacket that fits them really nice or has a nice texture or has a nice color. And it really just sets that character apart in their own sense. It really kind of completes the character. Those are always really a great favorite because it means that I haven't had to buy something online and hope that it's right. You know, sometimes the thrift store finds really are the best. As far as built, I don't know. Important Sipping Earnest was always really fun for me. Those ones were really great. I felt really proud to be able to get those done on time, because I think I gave myself like 2 months or something. And I got them all done in the space that I was in, like compared to the space I'm in now. Like, oof, it was me cutting on the floor and like dining room table and like making a mess. I'm like, it's a very small apartment.
Yeah, I remember that show well. When you came in, it's like, oh, we have this new person. It's like, oh my gosh, she built all of these things, and that's so cool.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of just trying to prove myself too, because I definitely had a couple people in my college career that I guess Theater Charlotte community theater was really good for me because I could be everything. I could be the cutter, the draper, the stitcher, the designer, but I definitely had it kind of drilled into me in college that when you're working professionally, you're either one or the other, and I was trying to do a lot of them. So I kind of wanted to be like, look, I'm capable of all of the things. So that one was kind of a push for me to really get all of those done and, well and successfully. So I think importance of being earnest as far as me building a large amount, I think that was probably my favorite. I just love the way that yellow dress looked on Emily. I think that one was really the way me looking at photos and doing all that research and actually putting it on the mannequin. I think it turned out much better than I anticipated, as well as even Miss Prism. Well, thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think I only used half the budget. So you're welcome.
Yes. You were definitely the talk of the office during that show.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever come close after that. Sorry. But I got bigger shows. More cast members means more money. So
Exactly. I hate that we didn't get to see the completed products of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof actually on stage.
Yeah.
Has a message here for you saying that he loved working with you. Then
yes,
I'm sure you guys will have the chance again someday.
I hope so. Yeah, worked with him on stage a couple times. Always a pleasure. So
yes. Well, cool. Thank you so much for doing this for us today. And just want to remind everybody, tomorrow we've got our Isolation Radio Hour with our members of our Cat on a Hot Tin Roof cast. And then on Sunday, Chris will have cast members with him for TC at Home, and that's Sunday at 7. And then we'll have Dennis Delamar here with us next week for this same show, Tuesday at 4 p.m. for TC Teachables. So thank you so much, Chelsea.
Of course.
We will see you soon, hopefully.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone.